You have a new semester starting, and you'll be taking biology. And I'm going to be your teacher. My name is Mrs. Schimizzi, and we're going to be exploring biology together for the next 18 weeks. And you might be wondering, what does biology have to do with you? Why do you really care about biology? And so I'm going to spend the next few minutes kind of talking to you about why biology is going to be a great class for you this year, and why I think that the way that my class is set up should be really helpful for you. So this video will take about 10 minutes, and we're just going to talk about the general features of the class. One of the things is you will be in a room with a smartboard, and we will have the ability to annotate on the board or use the Promethean smartboard. You're also going to be in a class with iPads. We have a class set of iPads. And so one of our goals is to really dive into what is biology, but to also understand how biology relates to the world around you. So it's pretty hard to find someone who can say never have I ever to all of these. Somewhere out there, everyone has done at least one of these things. Maybe you've gone on a diet. Well, we'll be talking about diets on the very first unit, when we talk about how our body is built of building blocks, and the things you eat do actually become your body. Have you ever taken an antibiotic? Well, antibiotics are chemicals made by fungi. They kill bacteria. And so we're going to be exploring all sorts of different living organisms in Unit 1.2. Have you ever had strep throat? If so, you were infected by a bacteria called Streptococcus pyogenes. And we'll learn all about the different types of living organisms and the structure of their cell in Unit 2. Have you ever had diarrhea? Well, that is what we're going to talk about when we talk about Unit 2.2, cell processes, and how normally your body functions to conserve water. But if you're sick with an illness, extra water gets excreted by the large intestine. So we're going to be covering lots of general ideas, but also really specific concepts that relate to things that you have seen or heard or perhaps experienced. We'll talk about cancer and cell division. We'll talk about type 1 diabetes when we talk about the protein insulin and how your body uses your DNA code to make the protein insulin. Can you roll your tongue? I can, but it's not something you practice. You can't teach yourself how to roll your tongue, but it's a gene that you're born with. You either can or you can't. And we'll learn how to predict what your genes are when we learn all about genetics in Unit 3. Have you ever left blood somewhere, or even just DNA? You're leaving DNA everywhere you are, your hair, your skin, and we'll use biotechnology to actually look at your DNA when we learn in Unit 3.4 all about biotech. Have you ever been able to tell green and red apart? Probably, but if you're red-green colorblind, you can't tell red and green apart. You might not be able to see the number 18 written in the squares here because you might not be able to tell the difference because of your chromosomes and the genes that you've inherited. Have you ever heard of MRSA? Well, MRSA is a bacteria, and this bacteria has actually changed over time because of our use, human use of antibiotics. And so methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus is actually the result of overuse of antibiotics. We're getting close to the end. You see that we're starting to look at the bigger picture here, the whole organism. But we'll still learn about tiny things like viruses and how viruses can get into your body and reproduce. Have you ever had a headache? Headaches can be caused by many things, but one of the things that we'll learn can cause a headache is a brain-eating amoeba. This amoeba can get in through your nose if you're swimming in fresh water and up to your brain, and it's literally breaking down your brain, and the only symptom you have is a headache and a fever. So beware of when you have headaches, but only if you've been swimming in fresh water and got it pushed up your nose. Have you ever had poison ivy? We will be learning all about plants and how they defend themselves. We'll learn about animals such as the earthworm. Did you know that they have a heart in every segment of their body? Each of these tiny little segments has its own heart. And so we're really close to the end. We'll start to talk about animal behavior, such as why do fireflies light up. We'll learn about organisms like tapeworms and how they're considered parasites, their relationships. They depend on humans to live. And we'll wrap up the year by really understanding the whole Earth and how we're affected by things like UV radiation. Why some people need to wear a little sunscreen, says the pig to the piece of bacon. So we'll be looking this year at specific content, but also relating it to the overall world. Hopefully you saw some things in here that interest you a little bit, but how will we actually learn this? Remember, there are some things that you might want to learn that I haven't discussed, and so you'll have lots of opportunities to share what you're interested in. But one of the things that I want to really get you thinking about is what makes a good student? What are the characteristics that help a student be successful all year? Not waiting until the end to try to be successful, but keeping an even level of success all year. And this brings to the idea, is learning ever easy? If learning is easy, what makes learning easy? One of the things that I want to talk to you about just real quickly is, what is the hardest part of a class? What is the easiest part of a class? There's a ton of research that goes on trying to examine how can we make learning easier. And it turns out that it's really believed that one of the easiest parts of class is actually taking notes. Kind of like as if you were filling things in as I went through this PowerPoint. That is one of the lowest levels, is just being able to copy down the notes. But the problem is that taking notes usually takes up most of a teacher's class period. And so what we want to do is we want to change that a little bit. We want to now take notes at home. Well, how on earth would you take notes at home? But that's the easiest thing to do. And a lot of times people say that homework and assignments are the hardest part. Well, usually you end up doing homework and assignments at home, and you spent all your class period taking notes. And we want to do something that's called flipped learning. My goal this year is to have you do the easy stuff at home and the harder stuff here at school, where you have me to help you, where you have your other students to help you. And so we're going to participate in something called a flipped classroom. What is a flipped classroom? A flipped classroom is where you'll prepare at home for what we're going to do in class. And what this means for you is you're going to watch a video that is no more than 15 minutes, ever. So what this means is that your homework, for the most part, will be right around 15 to 25 minutes. You're going to watch a video for no more than 15 minutes and do a few other little things, like maybe define some vocabulary that you saw in the video, words that you picked. But then when you come to class, you'll have already watched the notes. You'll already have the notes. So we'll be doing hard application level assignments in class. And then when you go home that night, you'll probably spend about 5 minutes finishing up that lesson. Going, okay, last night I learned something, I practiced it in class today, and then you'll really extend and practice your learning for a few minutes at home. So this is called the flipped classroom. There are a few important pieces of research that I want to share with you. The first is, what has research shown are the most important things about flipped learning? The first is actually the F, a flexible environment. To me, what this means is that you could watch your notes on an iPad, on a computer, on your phone, on your neighbor's computer, on the library computer. You can watch it during lunch here at school. You can come in early in the morning. But it's pretty flexible when and where you do your homework, because you just need to be able to access a YouTube video. The L is actually going to stand for a shift in learning culture. And this is going to require all of us to work together, because it used to be that learning culture meant you came in, you sat at your desk, and you were expected to pay attention only to the teacher and the notes that you were taking. And that's not what our class will be like. But we still have to be successful and effective in class. So it is going to be a little bit of a shift. There does have to be what's known as intentional content. And what this means is that I will have very carefully chosen what I want you to learn at home and what we're going to practice. And then you need actually a professional educator. And I promise that's what I will strive to be. I will seek your feedback. I will ask you how to make this better. Because really, in order to flip, we need everybody participating. There is just one tool, one last thing that I want to make sure that you know is there to help you this year as we flip the classroom and try to make this year really successful. And it's called the Biology Handbook. You're going to get a copy your first day in class. And in this handbook are going to be introductions to the unit, like a little reading about the Atkins diet. There's going to be outline notes and diagrams so that as you're watching the video at home, you can actually fill in your notes. You won't have to write everything, and there'll be lots of diagrams, but there's a structure for you to help you take notes. Also in the handbook that you'll get on the first day of class will be nightly application problems, meaning can you practice and apply your knowledge? You'll have labs and practice assignments like why do you pour hydrogen peroxide on a cut and why does it bubble? There'll be unit summaries to help you practice as you get ready for quizzes and tests. So I will see you in room 214 on next Thursday. Please try to bring a 1.5-inch binder to put your handbook in and a pencil. If you get a chance, a paper folder with the prongs and the pockets would be great too, because we're going to use that this year. I'm really excited to meet you, and if you have any questions or concerns, always feel free to reply to the email that you got this link in, or to search for me on the Butler website, Joanna Schimizzi.